I received my order for 5 samples of version 3 and version 6 engine lift brackets. This is the first time I've used CAD software to design parts, and the first time I've had anything laser cut to a design. A learning experience on both fronts. I'm happy with the design of the perimeter with good clearance to the covers and the heads. I found using the turbo pedestal as a guide frustrating. It looks like either mine is bent or the casting stress has moved the legs around. So I took direct measurements off my block for the mounting holes. I wanted to see how close I was, so I had the holes cut for 8 millimeters. And they were spot on. Laser cut, they are rough. I re-drilled them to 9 millimeters and will be changing the software because I'm not sure if there's a factory variation between engines. At 9 millimeters, there is clearance, and the reality is a bracket doesn't have to be as tight in dimension as I started with. My drawing for version 3 slot was off, and I had to redress all the slots with a burr and hand file. Again, something I don't want to do again. Another learning experience. The primary purpose of slotting the base was to provide an accurate registration for the flanges. Secondarily, to weld on the opposite side of the fillets to reduce weld distortion of the base plate, balancing both sides as much as possible. The other thing it does is increase strength. Although with version 6, it's hard to do the welds with the twin flanges. I welded one flange on both sides, then did the second flange. I had to bend the welding rod to get it to fit in between the two. For any of these to-be-welded kits, I'm marking the parts so someone doesn't make the mistake I did rushing with one of the prototypes, weld the flanges incorrectly. Everything with this is handed. With version 6, I made the top length of the slots slightly too short, so the radius of the corner would not let the flanges drop in full depth. I chamfered the slots with a file so they would make full contact. I undersized the holes in the flanges so I could re-drill to 15 millimeter and make sure they were smooth and round. I also chamfered the holes for the weld nuts I'm using. The nuts act as a bearing surface as well as a nut on the one end. I chamfered both sides. I did it so anyone welding these together would not have to worry about placing them correctly left to right, mess up and have the chamfers placed on the inside. Without a chamfer, the radius of the weld nut causes the flange to stand proud of the surfaces. The weld nut has to be ground thinner due to the 5/16 inch plate. Deburring and retapping the threads does add some time. I had the swing bar's clevis hole laser cut and undersized the hole on the other end so I could re-drill properly to tap a 1/2 13 thread. The small hole has to be drilled. It's too small for the laser. While it may be more labor on my part, I'll drill all the holes in the future. I didn't care for the roughness of the laser cut, and hardening the metal where I needed to tap made the job more challenging. I'm buying a new tap after 5 holes. The turnbuckles are galvanized, which makes the threads difficult with a normal nut. So an overnight soak in white vinegar dissolves the zinc, and going over the surfaces with a brass wire brush, they are in good condition. This is not an inexpensive part for trying to make a low-cost lift bracket. I looked at a less expensive turnbuckle, but the threads were not as good. I also acquired lower-cost shackles from E-Rigging, Home Depot, and Tractor Supply. The 2 more expensive ones from McMaster had the best overall quality, and the non-galvanized one, in my view, was better. It's not as strong, but it's rated at 3,000 pounds, and we are lifting a 1,000-pound engine. Just a note, The intent of these brackets are for the engine only. Lifting with the transmission connected was not the goal of these plates. For version 3, it's just a matter of making sure the flange is on the right side of the base in the right direction, then welding the slot and the fillets. I'd still use a welding triangle to keep the flange perpendicular. Version 6 is more complicated. Some assembly required. The back plate is made so its bottom edge aligns with the corner and with the plate's edges. I've been welding this last. Getting the flanges parallel and the axle holes aligned. I'm adding 2 throwaway 1/2 inch nuts to the kit, and before welding you make sure the flanges are parallel and aligned. After welding is done, these parts are removed and you move on to assembling the axle and swing arm using the Loctite for the weld nuts. If in the end, feedback says that having the ability to move the swing arm side to side is unnecessary, I'll go back to providing a more straightforward version without this side to side movement. I'm also thinking about going back to a no-weld version with the bolted eyelet. I may have overreacted to the needed plate thickness. That would be low cost and not need any welding. Just a whole lot of chamfering for the bolt. These kits fit into the small post office priority mail box. Shipping would be under $10. The idea for doing this was to provide an economical version from commercially sold ones, and less labor-intensive than making these from scratch. They both do that, especially version 3. My having the parts laser cut and shipped does significantly add to the cost of the metal, but it saves a lot of labor. People have kludged parts together or used other means. There's alternatives. If I make version 4 available, that would be in the same vein without the need to weld. Version 6 has so many parts to it, not only the need to laser cut all the parts, but the cost of the components. And I'm still spending time drilling, tapping, and some grinding. I'm not trying to charge fees that a shop would for this type of work. I'm just trying to cover some of my expenses. At some point, I'll probably tire of that. Version 6 is nice to have, but it's not necessary. The extras are priced at what I pay for them, if you want them, without the shipping and tax charged to me. Again, I'm not trying to make money off of these, just covering my costs to providing them. Plus, I think once these are out in the field, there won't be much need for many more. The field is already flooded from the earlier examples on eBay. If after this batch more are asked for, it takes a week for the steel supplier to get the parts to me. But I have to order in batches to keep the pricing down. So keep in mind any orders may be a week to a month away. Pricing and details are in the video description, and other information will be pinned in the comments section. If I did this on eBay, there would be more fees added on, although that might become an easier way for me to do this. As there are changes, I'll have the updates in the description area. If you want these, my PayPal is noted in the video description. Just add in the PayPal note exactly what you want. I have other things that are done with the PayPal account, so it could get confusing to me. PayPal charges fees too, just like eBay.